The twin suns of Carthon burned high in the sky, turning the endless desert into a sea of fire and gold. The wind carried sand like knives, cutting across the dry plains. Captain Ryland Dre walked alone through the wasteland, his armor scratched, his face covered in dust, and his heart heavy from too many battles. He was a scavenger now, searching for old tech and ship parts to sell. Once he had been a soldier, but the war had ended, and with it, his purpose. Now, all he had was his ship, the Wraithhawk, and the silence of forgotten worlds. As he climbed over a dune, something strange caught his eye, a black smoke trail rising from behind a ridge. It looked like a crash site. Ryland adjusted his visor and checked the scanner. No life signals. Still, something about it pulled him closer. Maybe it was instinct, or fate. When he reached the wreck, he saw an old fighter ship half buried in the sand. The metal was scorched, the engines melted. But then he heard it, a sound, soft, weak, like someone trying to breathe. He raised his weapon and moved carefully. The sound came again, a small gasp. Behind a broken wing, he found her, a girl lying in the dust. Her skin was pale blue, her face half covered in dirt, and her armor torn apart. She looked young, but her eyes, half open, held something ancient. In her hand, she clutched a glowing blade, cracked but still humming with faint blue energy. Ryland knelt beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her lips moved, but her voice was barely there. "Don't! Stay here." Then she passed out. Ryland checked her pulse, weak but steady. Whoever she was, she didn't have much time left. He looked around, nothing but sand and silence. "All right, kid," he muttered. "You're coming with me." He carried her back to the Wraithhawk, struggling against the storm. Inside, the air was cooler, the hum of the ship comforting. He laid her on the medbed and activated the healing unit. The machine hissed softly, scanning her wounds and injecting life fluids. Hours passed. Ryland sat beside her, watching the scanner. He couldn't explain why he cared. Maybe it was the soldier in him, refusing to let another soul die in the sand. Finally, the girl's eyes opened. They glowed faintly in the dim light, bright green against her blue skin. She looked around in confusion. "Where am I?" "Safe," Ryland said. "You were dying out there. I found you in the wreck." Her gaze sharpened. "You shouldn't have done that." Ryland frowned. "You're welcome." She sat up slowly, pain in her movements. "You don't understand. They'll come." "Who?" "The hunters." Before Ryland could ask more, the ship's alarm blared. Motion detected, fast-moving signals closing in. He ran to the cockpit, checked the radar. 3 unidentified crafts, black and silent, cutting through the storm straight toward them. He looked back at her. "You brought them here?" She looked down. "I told you. They never stop." "Who are they?" Her voice trembled. "Machines, made to hunt me. If they catch me, they'll take what's inside my blood, and the galaxy will burn." Ryland didn't believe in destiny or prophecy, but the fear in her eyes was real. He grabbed his controls. "Then we don't let them catch you." The Wraithhawk roared to life, lifting from the sand just as the first plasma shots hit the ground. The shockwave shook the ship. Ryland's hands moved fast, dodging blasts and spinning through the storm. "Can you fight?" he shouted. She stood behind him, weak but determined. "I can do more than that." She pressed her hand against the ship's control panel. Blue light spread from her skin into the metal, and suddenly the shields brightened. Stronger, brighter, alive. Ryland stared in disbelief. "What did you just do?" She didn't answer. The hunters fired again, but this time, the energy bounced harmlessly off the shield. Ryland pushed the throttle, engines screaming as they broke through the upper atmosphere and into the cold black of space. For a few seconds, there was silence, only the hum of the engines and the sound of their breathing. Ryland turned toward her. "You're not human, are you?" She met his eyes. "Not anymore. What's your name?" After a long pause, she said softly, "Lyra." He nodded slowly. "All right, Lyra, I don't know who these hunters are, but if they want you, they'll have to go through me first." She looked at him, her eyes filled with sadness. "You don't know what you're saying." "Saving me will change everything for you, for this world." Ryland gave a tired smirk. "My world's already broken. Might as well see what's next." The radar beeped again, more signals appearing behind them. The hunters weren't done. Lyra's blade started to glow brighter, reacting to something unseen. "They're coming," she whispered. Ryland gripped the controls tighter, then let them come. Outside, The void of space filled with dark shapes closing in fast. And that was the moment Ryland Dre's destiny began to change forever. The Wraithhawk soared through the upper layers of Carthon's sky, fire and dust swirling in its wake. Captain Ryland Dre gripped the controls tight, sweat running down his neck. Behind him, the scanners screamed. 3 hunter ships in pursuit, black as shadow, moving with deadly precision. "They're gaining," he shouted. The girl, Lyra, stood behind him, her glowing eyes fixed on the display. "You can't outrun them. They're built to chase." Ryland gave a sharp grin. "Then we'll have to make them choke on our dust." He spun the ship sharply, engines roaring as they dove through a canyon of clouds. Plasma bolts streaked past, shaking the hull. The storm outside turned violent. Lightning cracked, illuminating flashes of the hunters' sleek insect-like shapes. Ryland fired the rear cannons. Blue plasma lit the sky, hitting one hunter square on the wing. It spun out of control and exploded into a ball of fire. "One down," Ryland muttered, but the other 2 were still there, faster, smarter, alive. They moved like predators hunting their prey. Lyra pressed her hand against the console. The lights flickered as her energy spread through the systems again. "Let me help," Ryland frowned.
"What are you doing?"
Her voice was calm but firm. "Merging my energy with the ship. You'll get more speed, stronger shields, but it will drain me." He glanced at her. She looked pale already. "You'll kill yourself!" "Not yet," she whispered. The engines roared louder, brighter, blue energy flooding the ship. The Wraithhawk shot forward like lightning, tearing through the upper atmosphere and into open space. The sudden burst left the hunters momentarily behind. Ryland gasped at the sudden silence. Stars spread before them, cold and endless. But the relief didn't last. The radar beeped again. 2 red dots reappeared. "They were still coming. They won't stop," Lyra said quietly. "They can sense me." "They always know where I am," Ryland stared at her. "Then tell me what you are. What do they want?" She hesitated, her voice trembling. "I was made by them, by the people who created the hunters. I was designed as a weapon, a hybrid between human and machine. But I broke free." He looked at her with disbelief. "A weapon?" "I didn't want to be one," she said softly. "They built me to destroy. But something inside me changed. I learned fear, kindness, hunger." She looked away. "That's why they want me back." Ryland's jaw tightened. "Then they're not getting you." Before she could answer, the ship shook violently. The hunters had fired again. A plasma beam hit the rear thrusters, sending sparks through the cockpit. "Engines are failing," Ryland shouted. "Head for that moon." Lyra pointed to a gray sphere ahead, half covered in shadows. Ryland didn't hesitate. The Wraithhawk dove toward it, leaving a trail of smoke. Alarms blared, the cabin filling with the scent of burning wires. "Hold on," Ryland yelled as the ship tore through the moon's thin atmosphere. They crashed hard. Metal screeched against rock. Flames burst from the engines. The ship skidded across the dusty surface before slamming into a ridge. Then silence. Smoke filled the cockpit. Ryland groaned, unbuckling himself. "Still alive?" Lyra coughed weakly but nodded. "Barely." They climbed out into the cold night of the moon. The surface was quiet, the sky filled with stars. In the distance, strange ruins stood, ancient towers of stone glowing faintly with blue light. Ryland glanced at Lyra. "You know this place?" She looked pale, her expression distant. "Yes, this is one of their bases. Long ago, before they turned against their makers." He studied her face. "Then maybe there's something here that can help us." They walked toward the ruins, their footsteps echoing on the empty ground. Inside, the walls were covered in symbols, flowing lines that pulsed faintly as Lyra passed. The glow matched her blade. She touched one of the symbols. A low hum filled the air, and a holographic image appeared. A laboratory, scientists, machines, chaos. A girl inside a containment chamber, screaming as wires wrapped around her arms. Ryland realized it was her. A younger Lyra. "They used me," she whispered. "They wanted to create life that obeyed. But I learned to feel, and that scared them." Before Ryland could speak, the ground trembled. His scanner blinked. Multiple life forms approaching. Lyra's face turned white. "They found us." From the shadows of the ruins, metallic figures emerged. Tall, black, their eyes glowing red. "Hunters." Ryland pulled his rifle. "Guess they didn't like your freedom story." The air on the moon was thin and dry, carrying only the faint hum of old machines. Broken towers stood like the bones of a dead civilization, glowing faintly with blue light under the distant stars. Captain Ryland Dray walked slowly through the ruins, his blaster ready while Lyra followed behind him, her glowing eyes scanning every shadow. The cold wind brushed against them, carrying whispers of the past. They had survived the crash. They had survived the hunters. But the feeling of being watched never left. Ryland stopped near a shattered wall. You said this place was one of their bases. What were they doing here? Lyra hesitated before answering. Before the hunters turned against their masters, this was a research outpost. They studied energy, life energy. They tried to mix it with technology. That's how I was made. Ryland looked around, noticing strange metal roots running through the floor like veins. And these ruins, they're still alive? Some of them, Lyra said quietly. Parts of this moon are awake, listening. They entered a wide chamber filled with ancient machines, half buried in dust. The air glowed faintly blue as if the place remembered what it once was. Ryland brushed his hand across a console. Feels like a graveyard. Lyra stepped forward, touching the control panel. The moment her fingers made contact, the walls lit up, holographic symbols spinning around them. The air hummed louder, as if the moon recognized her. A soft female voice echoed from nowhere. Welcome back, Subject X9. Lyra froze. Her expression turned pale. No. It's still active. The voice continued, calm but emotionless. Your signal confirms survival. Data retrieval commencing. Ryland raised his rifle. Who's talking? Lyra shook her head. The system. It's part of their network. If it's online, that means the Queen can trace us. Ryland cursed under his breath. Then we shut it down. She looked at the glowing console. It's not that easy. This system is linked to me. If I disconnect it, it could kill me. Ryland took a step closer. Then we find another way. Before they could act, the ground rumbled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ryland spun around, weapon ready. What now? A section of the wall opened, and out stepped a tall figure made of black metal. Its eyes burned red, its voice deep and mechanical. Subject X9 located. Initiating retrieval. Lyra's blade ignited instantly, glowing bright blue. Run, Ryland! He ignored her and opened fire. Plasma shots hit the creature's armor, but it barely flinched. The machine moved fast, swinging an energy blade that cut through stone. Lyra leaped forward, meeting the attack. Sparks burst around them as blue and red energy clashed. Ryland joined in, firing at its joints, trying to distract it. The fight was fierce and close. Every hit from the machine made the floor shake. Lyra moved like lightning, her blade carving glowing trails through the air. Finally, she struck the machine's chest. The impact sent a burst of blue energy through the room. The machine staggered, then fell, its red eyes fading to black. The silence returned. Ryland helped her stand. You all right? She nodded weakly. It was a guardian, a leftover protector from when this base was still theirs. He looked at the machine's remains. How many more of these things are down here? Too many, she said softly. But maybe we can use them. He frowned. Use them? How? She pointed toward the central chamber. The core. If we reach it, I can access their network. Maybe even hide my signal from the hunters for a while. Ryland nodded. Then let's move. They made their way deeper into the ruins, down corridors lined with strange glowing tubes. Inside them floated fragments of technology, metal limbs, crystal cores, half-formed humanoid figures. Ryland's stomach tightened. They were building people here. They were trying to build perfection, Lyra whispered. But perfection doesn't feel pain. That's why they failed. As they reached the core chamber, the air felt heavy. A massive sphere hovered in the center of the room, connected to hundreds of glowing cables. It pulsed like a living heart. Lyra approached slowly. This is it, Ryland stopped her. You sure this is safe? She smiled faintly. Nothing about me has ever been safe. She placed her hand on the sphere. Instantly, blue light exploded outward, filling the chamber. Symbols danced in the air, showing flashes of data. War, creation, betrayal. Ryland shielded his eyes. What's happening? Lyra's voice echoed through the chamber, layered with static. It's showing me everything. The beginning of the hunters. The Queen. My origin. Her expression twisted in pain. They made me to lead them, to be the perfect weapon. But I refused to obey. The light grew brighter until it became unbearable. Then, with a loud pulse, everything went dark. The chamber lights flickered back on. Lyra was on her knees, trembling. Rylan rushed to her. Hey, stay with me. Her eyes glowed faintly as she looked up. I did it. My signal is hidden now. They can't find me. He helped her stand. Good. Maybe now we can rest. But before they could leave, a hologram flickered to life above the core, a towering figure of metal and light. Its voice echoed like thunder. You cannot hide from your creator, my child. Lyra froze. No. It's her. Rylan stepped forward, raising his weapon. Who the hell is that? The hologram's red eyes turned toward him. I am the one who built her. I am the Hunter Queen. The image smiled coldly. And now that she has awakened the core, I know exactly where to find you. The hologram vanished. Lyra's voice trembled. She's coming. Rylan looked at the glowing core, his face hard. Then we'll be ready. Outside the ruins, far beyond the stars, a colossal ship shifted in the darkness, its engines igniting with red light as it began its descent. The Queen was on her way. The air around the ruins turned colder. The faint hum of the core faded into silence, leaving only the sound of Rylan's heartbeat echoing in his ears. Dust floated in the still air like ghosts. He turned to Lyra, who stood frozen, staring at the spot where the Queen's hologram had vanished. Her glowing blue skin looked paler than before. She found us, Lyra whispered. No matter how far I run, she always finds me. Rylan stepped closer. Then we stopped running. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide. You don't understand. The Queen doesn't fight. She consumes. Every hunter out there listens to her command. If she comes here, she'll bring an army. Rylan gripped his rifle. Good, let her come. A deep rumble echoed through the tunnels. The walls trembled. Tiny bits of dust rained from the ceiling. Rylan quickly turned toward the entrance. Looks like we don't have much time. They rushed through the corridors, boots echoing against the metal floor. The glowing blue veins on the walls flickered, as if the moon itself sensed danger. Outside the ruin, the sky burned with red light. From orbit, dark ships were descending, massive angular machines like blades cutting through the atmosphere. The Hunter Queen's army. Lyra's face tightened. She sent her vultures first. Vultures? Rylan asked. Scouts, she replied. Fast, silent, and deadly. Once they mark us, the swarm will follow. They sprinted across the dusty plain toward the wreck of Rylan's ship. Smoke still rose from its engines, but he hoped something inside could still work. Behind them, a shrieking metallic sound pierced the air. A black drone-like shape emerged from the clouds, its red eyes scanning the ground. Get down! Rylan shouted, pulling Lyra behind a rock. The vulture glided overhead, wings spreading like a shadow of death. Lyra clenched her teeth. If it sends the signal, we're finished. Rylan nodded, then took a deep breath. Then we take it down before it does. He aimed his rifle carefully, waiting until the drone circled back. As it swooped lower, he fired. A bright plasma bolt hit the drone's side. It screeched, spiraling down before crashing into the sand. Nice shot, Lyra said, her lips curling into a faint smile. Don't celebrate yet, Rylan said grimly. They'll know it's gone silent. The ground started to shake again, this time heavier. Something massive was landing. They reached the wrecked ship, climbing inside through a torn hatch. The cabin was dark and filled with smoke, but the power core still hummed faintly. Rylan slammed his hand against the control panel. Come on, girl, wake up, lights flickered. The ship's AI voice sputtered to life. Warning, systems damaged. Engines offline. Weapons at 30%. That's enough for me, Rylan muttered. Lyra placed her hand on the wall. Her blue light pulsed through the metal, syncing with the ship. I can help stabilize power, but it will take time. Do it, Rylan said, taking his position by the doorway. I'll buy us some. Outside, the horizon glowed red as more ships descended. Metallic figures emerged from the dust. Hunters. Their eyes burned with crimson light as they advanced in perfect silence. Rylan braced himself and started firing. Each shot exploded against their armor, sending sparks flying. But for every one that fell, 2 more took its place. Lyra, faster, he shouted. I'm trying, she cried, her hands glowing brighter as energy flowed through her body into the ship's systems. Suddenly, a massive hunter crashed through the hull. A towering brute with 4 arms and a jagged blade fused into one hand. It roared, metal grinding against metal. Rylan dove aside as the blade sliced through the wall. Lyra, behind you! She turned, summoning her plasma blade. It clashed against the brute's weapon, sending shockwaves through the room. Rylan fired again, hitting the creature's leg joints, slowing it down. "Now!" he yelled. Rylan looked out the broken viewport. "We can't fight all of them." Lyra closed her eyes, breathing hard. "There's one chance. The core's energy signal. It's strong enough to overload the Queen's connection if we amplify it." "You're saying we use the moon's heart as a weapon?" Rylan asked. She nodded. "But to do that, someone needs to stay and keep the connection stable." He understood instantly. "No, I'm not leaving you," she smiled softly. "You don't have to. I just need you to reach the core with me. Once we trigger it, we run." They ran out of the wreck and back toward the ruins. The sky burned brighter now, red lightning streaking across the atmosphere as the Queen's ship drew closer. Hunters poured out from every direction, their weapons glowing. Rylan and Lyra fought side by side, moving like one. Plasma bolts flew, blades clashed, and explosions shook the ground. Finally, they reached the core chamber again. The great sphere still pulsed faintly with blue light. Lyra touched it. The energy surged again, brighter than before. "It's ready!" Rylan placed his hand over hers. "Do it!" She focused, and the core began to pulse faster, glowing with intense energy. The ground trembled violently. The hunters surrounding the ruins suddenly stopped, their red eyes flickering as the signal disrupted. The Queen's voice echoed in the air, filled with rage. "You dare defy me, my child?" Lyra shouted back, her voice strong. "I'm not your child anymore." The core exploded with a wave of blue energy that tore through the ruins, destroying everything in its path. Hunters disintegrated, their circuits melting into dust. The blast consumed the entire moon, lighting up the dark side of space like a new sun. When the light faded, silence returned. Rylan coughed, pushing aside debris. "Lyra?" He looked around, his heart pounding. Then, from the smoke, a faint blue glow appeared. Lyra was alive, but barely. He rushed to her side, lifting her into his arms. Her voice was weak. "It's over. For now." Rylan looked up at the sky where the Queen's ship hovered in the distance, damaged but still alive. "Yeah," he said softly. For now, the war wasn't over. But together they had struck their first blow. And somewhere deep in space, the Queen watched them with cold fury. "You can't run forever, my creation." The explosion had turned the moon into a graveyard of glowing dust. Blue energy still drifted across the surface like fog, whispering through the silence of destruction. Captain Rylan Dre stood on the broken ridge, his armor covered in ash. The core was gone. The hunters were gone. But the Queen, she was still out there. Beside him, Lyra sat weakly against a rock, her blue skin dim and her breathing slow. The blast had drained her energy. She looked almost human now, fragile, trembling. Rylan knelt beside her. "You did it. You stopped them." Lyra opened her eyes slightly. "No, not stopped, delayed." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at the sky where the stars glimmered faintly. "The Queen will rebuild. She always does. And this time, she'll come for me herself." Before Rylan could answer, a distant rumble rolled across the desert. He turned sharply. The sound wasn't thunder. It was engines. A small transport ship was descending through the smoke, its landing lights cutting through the darkness. Rylan raised his rifle but lowered it when the ship broadcasted an old Earth Federation code, one that hadn't been used in years. "Rescue team," he muttered. The ship landed nearby, kicking up dust. The hatch opened, and 3 soldiers in Federation armor stepped out. One of them, a tall woman with short dark hair, removed her helmet. "Captain Rylan Dre?" she called out. Rylan lowered his weapon. "Yeah, who's asking?" "Lieutenant Karavos, Recon Division. We picked up your distress signal." She looked around at the burning landscape. "Looks like we're a little late." Rylan nodded toward Lyra. "We need medical support. Now." Kara's eyes narrowed when she saw the blue-skinned girl. "What is she?" "Alive," Rylan said coldly. "That's all that matters." The soldiers helped carry Lyra aboard. As the ship lifted off, Rylan looked out the viewport at the ruined moon. He couldn't shake the feeling that something down there was still watching. Later, aboard the ship Nomad, Lyra lay on a medical bed connected to several energy tubes. Her breathing had stabilized, and her color was returning. Rylan sat beside her, staring at the monitor. Kara entered the medbay quietly. "You want to explain why your passenger's DNA is half machine?" Rylan didn't look up. Because she's not from our side of the war. Kara crossed her arms. You mean she's one of them? She's one of the reasons we're still alive, Ryland snapped. Kara sighed. Command won't like this. They'll want her contained, studied. They'll have to go through me first, Ryland said firmly. Before Kara could reply, the lights flickered. The hum of the engines dropped for a second. The ship's AI spoke up. Warning, unknown signal detected. Source, intercepted transmission on encrypted frequency. Ryland stood up. Put it on screen. The holoprojector lit up, and a familiar voice filled the room. My dear creation, did you think I would let you go so easily? The Queen's hologram appeared, her form massive and shimmering, eyes burning crimson. Lyra's eyes opened weakly. She found us. The Queen's cold smile widened. You destroyed my hunters, my core, and my world. So I built something new, something born from your very code. The hologram shifted, showing a tall humanoid figure with silver armor and glowing blue veins. Its eyes flickered between red and blue, half hunter, half Lyra. I call it Spectre. Your mirror. Your end. The image faded. Kara looked at Ryland. Tell me that was a bad joke. Ryland clenched his fists. No, it's a death sentence. Hours later, the Nomad was moving through deep space, heading toward a nearby Federation outpost. The crew was on edge. Lyra sat up slowly, still weak. She won't stop. The Queen will keep sending things until I'm gone. Ryland looked at her. Then we'll stop her first, she smiled faintly. You still believe you can fight gods? Only the broken ones, he replied. Before she could respond, alarms began blaring. Warning! Object approaching at high speed. Ryland ran to the cockpit. Visual. The stars outside blurred as something massive approached, a dark ship moving faster than any known craft. Then with a burst of blue light it stopped. There it was. The Spectre's vessel! A cold voice echoed through the ship's speakers. Ryland Dre, Lyra, surrender, and I will make your end swift. Ryland turned to Kara. Battle stations. The Nomad fired its weapons, plasma bolts flashing across space. But the Spectre ship dodged with impossible speed. A single blast from its cannons tore through one of the Nomad's wings. Sparks filled the cockpit, shields down to 40%. The pilot shouted. Ryland gritted his teeth. Aim for its engines! They fired again, hitting the Spectre's hull, but the damage repaired itself instantly. The ship shimmered, like it was alive. It's using Lyra's regenerative code, she said, realizing in horror. It learns from every attack. The Spectre's ship released several drones that latched onto the Nomad's hull, cutting their way in. Boarding parties! Kara shouted. Ryland grabbed his rifle. Lyra, stay here. She shook her head. No, it's after me. I have to face it. He stared at her for a moment, then nodded. Then we do it together. They raced down the corridor as the walls shook. Sparks flew. One of the doors exploded inward, and metallic shapes crawled through. Half hunters, half humanoid, their faces emotionless. Ryland and Kara opened fire, their shots lighting up the hallway. Lyra moved between them, her blue blade cutting through the air like lightning. But then, everything went silent. From the smoke, a tall figure stepped forward, sleek, silver armor reflecting the emergency lights. Its eyes glowed with both red and blue fire. The Spectre had arrived. It looked straight at Lyra. You are the flaw in the code. I am the correction. Lyra raised her blade. Then come and try, they charged. The clash was deafening, blue and silver light filling the corridor. Sparks flew as their blades collided, each strike sending waves of energy through the walls. Ryland fired at the Spectre's back, but the creature spun, deflecting the shots with impossible speed. It kicked Ryland aside, slamming him into a wall. Lyra screamed and attacked harder, her movements faster, sharper, fueled by rage and fear. But the Spectre was stronger. It grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. You cannot kill yourself, it said, its voice a perfect echo of hers. Then a blast hit it from behind, Ryland's plasma grenade. The explosion threw both of them apart. Lyra landed hard, coughing. Ryland stumbled to her side, bleeding but alive. The corridor burned, the Spectre buried under debris. Ryland pulled her up. We need to get off this ship. Now. But as they turned, a glowing hand pushed through the wreckage. The Spectre was still alive. Its red and blue eyes flickered like dying stars. And then, in that metallic voice, it whispered, You can't run from what you are. Alarms screamed through the Nomad as flames tore across the corridors. The ship trembled violently, metal creaking under the pressure of battle. Captain Ryland Dre pulled Lyra through the smoke-filled hallway, his grip tight on her arm. Behind them, the Spectre's voice echoed, calm, mechanical, unstoppable. You can't escape what you are. The lights flickered red as explosions ripped through the hull. Kara's voice came over the intercom, shouting through static. Captain, the Spectre's boarding drones are cutting through the reactor bay. We'll lose containment in 5 minutes. Ryland cursed under his breath. Kara, get the crew to the escape pods. What about you? I'm not done yet, he growled. They reached the elevator shaft, but the power was dead. Lyra pressed her hand against the wall, her veins glowing blue. Energy surged through the circuits, and the lift hummed to life. She looked at him weakly. I can hold it for a while. But not long, Ryland smiled faintly. Then that's all the time we need. The doors opened, and they descended to the engineering deck, the heart of the ship. Sparks rained from the ceiling as they stepped out. Below, Kara and 2 crew members were trying to stabilize the core, but the damage was too deep. Containment breach in 4 minutes. The AI warned. Kara looked up as Ryland entered. We're out of options, Captain. Ryland pointed to the far wall, where a circular gate shimmered faintly with blue light. That jump core, can we use it? Kara blinked. The prototype? It's unstable. It could tear the ship apart. Or it could get us out of here, Ryland shot back. Lyra, can you stabilize it? Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. Maybe, if I connect directly. He frowned. Won't that drain you completely? She hesitated. Maybe, but it's the only way. Before they could argue further, a loud crash shook the deck. The metal wall twisted open like paper, and the Spectre stepped through, its armor gleaming, one eye red, the other blue. Running only delays the inevitable, it said, its voice echoing through the chamber. Kara raised her rifle. Here we go again. Ryland motioned to Lyra. Go. Get to the jump core. Lyra sprinted across the deck, energy pulsing from her hands. The Spectre turned to follow her, but Ryland fired a plasma blast that caught its attention. Hey, machine, Ryland shouted. Come get me! The Spectre turned its head slightly. You are irrelevant. Funny, Ryland said, cocking his rifle. I hear that a lot. They clashed, man versus machine. Plasma shots exploded against armor as the Spectre moved with inhuman precision. It struck with one arm, sending Ryland sliding across the floor. Kara fired from the catwalk above, hitting the creature's shoulder. You're not taking our ship, you tin corpse! The Spectre looked up, raised its hand, and released a wave of energy that blew Kara off the railing. She hit the floor hard. Ryland crawled toward her, coughing. Kara, you okay? She gritted her teeth. Go! Help her. At the jump core, Lyra pressed both hands against the glowing portal. Streams of blue light flowed from her body into the machine. The unstable ring began to spin faster, its surface warping like liquid glass. The AI's voice echoed through the chaos. Warning, gravitational instability detected. Hull integrity compromised. Lyra's voice was strained. Ryland, it's ready! Ryland looked back. The Spectre was advancing on her. He grabbed a fallen plasma grenade, armed it, and threw it at the creature. The explosion sent shockwaves through the chamber. But the Spectre emerged from the flames, its armor cracked but still functional. It raised its hand. A blue and red blade formed in its grasp. You cannot kill what is born from perfection. Lyra turned to face it, energy rippling through her arms. Perfection doesn't feel. That's why you'll lose, she charged. The two collided in a blinding burst of light. The chamber filled with electric sparks, energy waves tearing through the air. Ryland shielded his eyes. The Spectre's blade sliced through machinery. Lyra's energy blade met it head-on. The jump core began to glow brighter, dangerously bright. Kara shouted from the floor, It's going to collapse! Ryland grabbed a fallen cable, tying it around his arm, and sprinted toward Lyra. We're leaving, now! The Spectre slashed again, cutting through the floor, sending metal flying. Ryland fired his rifle point blank, hitting the creature's chest and forcing it back a few steps. Lyra! He shouted. The gate, now! She nodded weakly, tears glimmering in her eyes. You shouldn't have stayed. He smiled faintly. Yeah, I get that a lot too. They jumped through the portal together. Just as the reactor exploded, a blinding wave of blue light consumed the ship. Moments later, Ryland gasped for air. He was floating, The stars around him twisted like reflections in water. The Nomad was gone. Kara and the crew? Gone. Only endless space remained. He looked around until he saw a faint blue glow. Lyra drifted nearby, unconscious but alive. They were inside the wormhole, or what was left of it. Streams of light flowed in every direction, bending reality. He grabbed her hand and held tight as the current pulled them forward. "Stay with me, Lyra, don't let go." Through the chaos, voices whispered, echoes of the Queen. "You think you escaped? But you only fell deeper into my web." Rylan looked around, but there was nothing, only shadows moving through the light. The Spectre's silhouette appeared for a moment, then vanished again. "Not again," he muttered, pulling Lyra closer. "We'll find a way out." The wormhole shook violently. Time and space twisted. Rylan's vision blurred as everything folded into light, and then silence. They fell through an opening, crashing onto solid ground. Rylan groaned, rolling over. He looked around. Strange alien trees glowed with purple light, and 2 moons shone in the sky. The air felt heavy, unfamiliar. Lyra coughed softly beside him, her eyes flickering open. "Where were we?" Rylan looked up at the alien stars. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But it's not home." Then, in the distance, a tall figure stood watching, motionless, glowing faintly with blue and red light. The Spectre had survived the jump. Rylan raised his weapon slowly. "Looks like the chase isn't over." Lyra stood beside him, her eyes burning with defiance. "Then let's finish it." The alien sky shimmered with violet clouds, twin moons hanging silently above the horizon. Strange blue plants glowed faintly across the landscape, swaying as if breathing. The world felt alive, watching them. Captain Rylan Dre stood at the edge of a cliff, his weapon drawn, scanning the glowing forest below. His armor was cracked, his face tired, but his eyes burned with determination. Behind him, Lyra sat by a rock, trying to stabilize the small energy core she had salvaged from the Nomad. Her hands trembled as she worked. Faint light flickering between her fingers, Rylan glanced at her. "How bad?" "The wormhole fried most of the systems," she said quietly. "We're lucky we're alive at all." Rylan nodded, looking up at the sky. "Wherever this is, it's not on any star map I know." Lyra touched the soil. "This place isn't normal. I can feel something beneath the surface. Old energy, familiar energy." Before Rylan could answer, the ground beneath them pulsed, a faint vibration like a heartbeat. He looked around sharply. "That's not my imagination, right?" Lyra stood, her expression serious. "No, this world is alive." They made their way down the cliffs, moving cautiously through the glowing forest. Every tree seemed to hum faintly, and rivers of light flowed through the ground like veins. Rylan stepped carefully. "Feels like walking inside a living creature." Lyra nodded. "This planet's core is infused with energy, like the one inside me, but stronger." As they moved deeper, they came across ancient ruins covered in vines, tall stone structures shaped like spirals and circles, glowing faintly with blue symbols. Lyra ran her fingers over the carvings. "I've seen these before." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "You have?" "In the Queen's archives," she said softly. "These are from the first ones, the beings who created both the hunters and—" "Me," Rylan frowned. "You mean this planet was theirs?" She nodded slowly. "Their home. Or what's left of it." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the forest. Rylan aimed his rifle. "We're not alone." From the shadows, shapes began to appear. Tall figures with glowing eyes, their bodies wrapped in armor made from the same blue metal as the ruins. They moved silently, surrounding Rylan and Lyra. Lyra raised her hand slowly. "Wait, I know your kind. You're the Keepers." One of them stepped forward, its voice deep and resonant. "You should not exist, child of the machine." Rylan moved in front of her, weapon ready. "She's not your enemy." The Keeper tilted its head, studying him. "And yet she carries the code of the Queen, the destroyer of worlds." Lyra's voice was calm. "I was made by her, yes, but I fight against her." The Keepers looked at each other. The one in front finally spoke again. "Prove it." The ground trembled. From the ruins, blue light burst upward, forming a glowing circle. A test chamber. Rylan glanced at Lyra. "They want to fight." Lyra shook her head. "No, they want to test my truth." She stepped into the circle. The energy rose around her, creating illusions, memories. The Queen's armies, the burning of worlds, the creation of the hunters. Rylan watched helplessly as Lyra fell to her knees, screaming as the vision surrounded her. He shouted, "Stop it! You're killing her!" The lead keeper held up a hand. If she lies, she dies. Inside the glowing light, Lyra saw herself, standing beside the Queen long ago, leading the hunters into battle. But then she saw something else, the moment she turned against them. The moment she chose mercy over domination, Lyra shouted, her voice echoing through the ruins. "I chose life. I'm not her!" A surge of blue energy exploded from her body, shattering the circle. The keepers stumbled back, their eyes wide. The leader finally spoke. "You speak the truth. You are not the Queen's servant." But her mistake. Lyra gasped for air, trembling. Rylan rushed to her side, holding her steady. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "I think so." The keeper approached slowly. "If you wish to destroy her, you will need the weapon she fears." Rylan looked up. "Weapon?" The keeper nodded.